Councillor Ludwig.
Hi, sorry, my camera wasn't working for a minute there. A bit concerning. Last thing I need is technical issues.
So corporate officer, are we ready to proceed?
We're ready, thank you.
Thank you. So good evening. I'm Deputy Mayor D'Andrade. I'd like to welcome everybody to the council meeting on February 16, 2021, held electronically as per the Ministerial Order M192/2020. I would also like to acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. And also today we have our youth counselor, Evie Clark. Welcome. I think it's the first time that she's attending the meeting. So I would like to now to call the meeting to order. We have an agenda. I would like to get approval of the agenda first. Thank you, Councillor Ludwig, Councillor Crow, thank you. Any addition to the agenda at this point? Any change? Okay, so approval. Is anybody agreed? Final approval, thank you. Agenda approved. So the agenda is adopted. We have adoption of minutes of the regular council meeting, February 2nd. So the recommendation is that the minutes be adopted. Thank you, Councilor Crow. Second by Councilor Ludwig. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Passed. Business arising from the minutes. Do we have any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, I would proceed. Today we have delegations and petition. We have Ryan Staley, Coastal Rides. Please, Mr. Staley.
Mr. Staley has just been added as a panelist. He should be showing up soon. There he is.
I see him. Mr. Staley, thank you for coming.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. So, yeah, thanks for inviting me and having me here. I'm actually coming to you live from the traditional territories of the Sechelt Nation, just down the road here. So, it's nice to see you. So, yeah, I mean, I've got a couple sort of comments that I'd like to sort of just share with you. And happy to answer any questions you might have about what we're doing and how things are going. So, yeah, so Coastal Rides is what's called a transportation network service. And so February 28th, I received approval from the Passenger Transportation Board to operate a transportation network service in the area that includes Sunshine Coast, most of Vancouver Island, as well as northern BC. And so a transportation network service is different than, say, like a bus company or a taxi company, in that really the license authorizes me to determine that a private individual or company, for that matter, has the required certifications and licenses to operate on the system that I have, that they can accept trips through an online platform and drive people from A to B in exchange for money. And payments all go through the online system, so the driver does not accept cash. It can't be hailed from the street like a taxi. So that's sort of what we are in a nutshell. Currently, we are operating on the Sunshine Coast, usually on-demand service between about 7:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. And then we will take bookings into the late evening or early morning, as long as we know to stay awake. There's only a limited number of drivers right now, basically myself and two others. Driver recruitment, you've probably heard in the media and the big multinational companies complaining that driver recruitment due to some of the requirements that, has been a challenge. I think right now COVID is the bigger challenge for driver recruitment and getting people online to really create sort of an on-demand system here on the coast. But having a vehicle that's less than 10 years old, which is one of the requirements, has been a challenge, particularly people who are older and maybe do have the commercial license often, and people who live on the coast in general. Talked to our MLA, he said he didn't have a vehicle that was new enough to operate on the system, so we're in good company. And then the class 4 driver's license is a barrier. I think it's not insurmountable and probably a reasonable safety measure. The requirement for a clean criminal record and vulnerable sector checks has generally not been an issue. I guess people know not to apply. Over the last year, I really started after I got the license when COVID sort of took off the week after getting the license. I kind of put a pause on starting operations and didn't get going until June. And it was tough going in the beginning because it was just me driving, and most of the demand was sort of to and from Harbor Air and the ferries, and sort of a little bit of local traffic. Obviously, people aren't going out in the evening right now, so that's not really something. In the future, I think that the future is probably the thing to chat about with you guys, and sort of the post-COVID world where people maybe travel in vehicles together with people that are not from the same household. And my thought in starting this, or the notion starting this, is that shared or pooled rides are going to be a critical part of being able to meet demand, and as well as meet sort of the crushed demand from the ferry, where you get a whole bunch, hundreds of people coming off all at once. So we need to not just have sort of a taxi system where it's one ride, one driver, but really be able to put multiple people in the same vehicle. One of the thing, and then the other thing that we're working on is getting wheelchair accessible vehicles or vehicle in the fleet, and then working with a company called Care for a Lift that operates companion care services here on the coast. And they have a wheelchair accessible vehicle, but it really, the business case is not there to operate it between my system, or the Coastal Ride system, as well as companion care transportation. So we've actually started a nonprofit called Getting There Society. And the goal for that organization is to own and operate a fleet of accessible vehicles, first here on the coast, as well as potentially throughout the province, because it's an issue that we're seeing in other communities too. And then the other part of that is potentially with that organization is acquiring sort of a shuttle bus, looking at electric vehicles that, once you throw in the current plug-in BC rebates, an electric 15-passenger van is actually the same price as a new gasoline powered one. So that could be an exciting thing that we launch here on the coast. But that sort of shared ride service is really going to be a post-COVID world thing that we see. And then, the other thing that maybe to think about is that we could offer other services if organizations or municipalities wanted to contract with organizations other than BC Transit to provide things like handy-dart services. Or I know in the past Gibson's operated a shuttle between Upper and Lower Gibsons, instead of investing in sort of the overhead for a fleet of vehicles to do that kind of thing. We could look at sort of a subsidy per ride if you wanted to create something that's a little bit cheaper than what we're able to offer, because right now we've got a minimum charge of, I think, $12 is the fare, mostly because often a driver may have to go a long way to get to a ride, even if it's short. So we need to be able to pay them for their time and effort there. So that's sort of all the prepared information I had, and happy to take any questions. I'm not sure what the procedure is for this.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great. I went to your website. It actually is a beautiful website. I love the picture. It really depicts
Thanks.
us. And Council, any comment, questions? Hey, Councillor Ledwig, please.
Hi, Ryan. Good to see you. Haven't
Yeah,
seen
you
you
too.
since we used to commute.
I haven't been on the ferry for a while.
Yeah, me neither. Anyways, congratulations. It's so nice to see your website up and running and to see this business happening. I remember now you talking about this before COVID hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's fantastic. So are you open to a little constructive thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kind of going. When I open up, so I too went to your website and I think it's fantastic. It's beautiful, very professional. But right now, and I suppose it's just where you're at in your business development, it's very tailored towards getting the riders or the drivers, I should say,
Hmm.
you know, it seems really geared towards them.
Hmm.
And I do notice once I went into the frequently asked questions, you answered a lot of the questions that I had, so that's great. But I felt like I had to find them. And so, like me, as someone who might just be interested in getting a ride, maybe I'm not ready to download the app. You know, a lot of people on the coast aren't app savvy.
Yeah.
It would just be nice to have a little bit more information up front about like how much does it cost? What are your hours of operation? How do I book a ride kind of thing? Because now that I know you're there, that's awesome. And yeah, I can go for a beer with my family on a Friday night now, and I know who to call if I want to get home safely. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. Evenings are we kind of need to know in advance right now, but we do have people around that can jump into it. It's just it's been well, not many people are going out for a beer these days. So.
No, I know. Only in your own bubble.
That's right.
Anyways, great.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Nice work, and I look forward to seeing your business take off.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Councillor Crowe.
Thank you, Chair. It's in the whole rideshare thing. I think is really interesting. How many drivers do you currently have?
On the coast, there's 3 of us, and then there's about probably another 5 or more that said I'm not going to do this until after COVID.
You know, the COVID is obviously a huge issue. And the other thing is, because we do have rideshare, or not rideshare, we have a car co-op on the coast. And I know they have a number of subscribers. Now, admittedly, you have the advantage of being able to offer a chauffeured ride. And thus the cost of the minimum cost, you said $12?
Yes, right now and that's
so
private.
for Councillor Ledwig to go from Tapworks home would be $12, but I guess getting there safely would be the advantage. You know, I was and I also used to commute with you. And I was a great believer in Car2Go, and I was really sad to see them leave the Lower Mainland. You know, I have my concern is how many pieces can you cut the pie into, and people still make a go of it, because, you know, having a commercial license and then, you know, insurance costs, if you're offering that sort of thing with your car insurance is going to go up, I would suspect.
Yeah, no, there's no change in the driver's car insurance. Their insurance for driving people in exchange for money is covered through a blanket policy that we have, and it covers them when they're have an accepted trip and they're on their way to pick someone up, or if they have people in their vehicle.
No, that's good to know, because I know at one point I looked at starting a cab company with old London taxis, and the insurance was just insane.
Yeah, it's still a lot, but it's on a per trip basis.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Other councillors? Okay, so Staley, great. I want to perhaps suggest something. I thought about the Gibson Senior Society, And if you'll be willing to do a presentation to them, they can use Zoom, so you can have a Zoom meeting with them. I think it will be great that they are aware because they have a good membership. And because frankly, I didn't know about you until this meeting. And I was like surprised because you have been operating since January. So a little bit of obviously word of mouth would do it too, but it might take a little bit. So perhaps if you go around and talk to these organizations, or I would say that the Senior Society is a good one because many seniors, perhaps they don't want to drive, or that could be a possibility.
Certainly, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you. That's I look forward to actually to post-COVID, so I can also go at night and do some good parties. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
So we now are on the inquiry session. Corporate officer, do we have any inquiry at this point? And I would like to remember that this is an inquiry about something in the agenda.
Yes, so if anyone has a question, I'm just going to bring them up here. We do have someone here with a question. You should see Suzanne Sanger's name on your screen.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Singer.
Hi. So yeah, I'm Suzanne Sanger. So I have a couple of questions, but I'll only raise the one that's actually on the agenda now, and I'll wait till the end for the other one. So I had written a letter to Mayor and Council on February 1st, just kind of a celebratory letter going, woohoo, we just got changes to the Environmental Management Act, and the Contaminated Sites Regulation just came into effect on February 1st. That have some really positive implications from my perspective, and hopefully from the town's perspective. So I just wanted to sort of check in with you guys to see whether or not, council will expects to receive any kind of staff report or update about these changes to the Contaminated Sites regulations, and how those changes may affect proposed development in Gibson's Landing, given that, we have that contentious project on the waterfront that's a high-risk contaminated site, and these changes would affect it. So I'm just kind of curious to know what happens now that these changes have come forward for you.
Thank you, Suzanne. I would ask our CAO.
Through acting Mayor Andrade, sorry. So a few months ago, as you might recall, the town opted back into that process, irrespective with the new regulation where everybody's in anyway, which I think is a good idea. It's a lot more clarity. We're still going to be reviewing the new regulations to go forward, and I think in the next quarter or so we should have something for council to consider, because it will have some possible changes, I would imagine, to it's related to how we receive applications that requires a notification and so on, but we haven't had a chance to process that just yet, but it's on our radar as well, and we're looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And CEO,
sorry, yeah.
Confirm, is it the first quarter? Because I was going actually even to propose if how council feels in asking for the report, but if the report is coming, it will be this quarter still?
End of the first quarter is like 6 weeks away, so I don't want to sort of commit to that, but sooner rather than later, it's something we have to have in place. Okay. And I don't know specifically what council has to enact further from your direction to opt back in, but we'll circle back with that, and as soon as we can. But I think realistically, by the end of the first quarter is probably not realistic, but we'll do our best to get that back to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's good to be informed, understand the process. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks. Councilor.
Thank you.
Any other question? Corporate officer, any other inquiry?
Sorry, just checking here. I do not see any further questions, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. So we now are on the committee reports. Does anyone have a report today? Oh, sorry, this is not council report, sorry. I think it's just special committee of the whole meeting, January 26, 2021. No, sorry, corporate officer, I think I would, I would need some
You-
guidance.
You probably need a motion to adopt the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meetings.
That's what it is. Thank you very much. So, Councilor Lumley, are you approving? Are you making the motion? Thank you. Okay, second by Councilor Crowe. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. So we have a special committee of the whole meeting on January 26th, and the recommendation that the minutes be received. Do I have Councilor Crowe? Do I have a second, Councilor Lumley? Any discussion, any change? All in favor? Thank you. So the next report is our 2021-2025 water and sewer 5-year capital plan. And the recommendation is that staff investigate the option for removing microplastics from the wastewater treatment process as part of the work for continuing wastewater treatment plant improvements. All right, let me get into.
So if I may, I gotta find the right title for you tonight. Sorry, I'm struggling a little bit. Acting Mayor D'Andrade. So my recollection is this came out of it was part of a discussion around budgets for water and sewer, but
Yeah.
there was an additional motion that came forward just for us to investigate that further. Is that correct? Okay.
Let me just a second, just finding this on the agenda. Okay, so we don't really have any report because this is a recommendation. So does anyone would like to move a recommendation? Councilor Crowe, Councilor Lumley, any more discussion? So all in favor? Thank you. That was a great recommendation. I look forward to a solution to microplastics. So now the item is 7.2, Special Planning Development Committee meeting, February 2nd, 2021. And the recommendation is that the minutes of the Special Planning Development Committee meeting held February 2nd be received. Councilor Crowe. Councilor Lumley, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. 7.22, it's a development permit for form and character DPA 5 for Unit 1, 292 Gower Point Road. And we have a recommendation that DP 2021-01 for the renovation at Unit 1, 292 Gower Point Road be authorized. Councilor Crowe. Do I have a second? Councilor Ladwig? It's a little bit dark, Councilor, sorry. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, approved. 7.23, development permit for form and character for a garden suite at 931 Davis Road. The recommendations are to that DP 2020-31 for 931 Davis Road be authorized for a garden suite, and that the owner come up with a landscape plan to soften the look of the garage door at the north elevation. So do we have a motion? Councilor Crowe? Councilor Lumley? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, passed. Item 7.2.4, development variance permit for 744 Gibson's Way. The recommendation is that the Planning and Development Committee recommend notifying neighbors of the requested variances at 744 Gibson's Way, DVP 2021-01. Do I have a mover? Councilor Crowe? Councilor Lumley? Discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? Thank you. Special Committee of the Whole, February 9, 2021. So the first 7.3.1 is the recommendation that the Special Committee of the Whole meeting held February 9, 2021 be received. Thank you, Mr. Crowe. Councilor Ledwig, any discussion? Any change? All in favor? Thank you. Approved. 7.3.2, reviewing the notification procedure for OCP and zoning amendments, development variance permits, and temporary use permits. The recommendations are that council direct staff to draft an amendment to development applications procedures by law number 1166 by increasing notifications to 100 meters for OCP amendments, zoning amendments, and temporary use permits, and retaining the 50 meters notification radius for DVP applications with the addition of a notification sign provided by the town to be placed on site, provide information on the application type, proposal, applicant, and information on where to find more information. And that staff review development application fees to reflect this change. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councilor Crowe. Seconded by Councilor Ledwig. Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? Thank you, that passed. Administration reports, 8.1, Director of Corporate Office Services, 2021 meeting schedule update. We have a report, please, Corporate Officer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dandred. You are required to pass a meeting schedule each year, which you have done. There's been a change to that meeting schedule. This is largely as a result of the canceling of the Development and Planning Committee. As you know, that's being replaced with the design panel, the advisory design panel, which has yet to be appointed. So this new calendar removes the Development and Planning Committee meetings. You will note that your Committee of the Whole is the same day as your regular council meetings. So those are highlighted in red. On here, there were no conflicts when staff checked with regard to any conferences or conventions you might wish to attend. So this was in the clear. Your special council meetings don't tend to show up here. They can be done at the discretion of the mayor. But I just wanted to remind you that you do have one on February 23rd. And because of the budget, it has been brought to my attention. You also have them on March 9th and March 23rd, special Committee of the Whole meetings. So just make note of those. I did send out an email earlier today. Many of you may not have had a chance to see it yet. Because of the budget discussion scheduled for February 23rd for the special Committee of the Whole meeting, which would ordinarily start at 3, we would like to move that ahead and start it at 2 to give ourselves an extra hour of time, because there is a special council meeting scheduled to start at 5. And we were concerned that 2 hours, if it shouldn't be enough, you might find yourself running into a conflict with the special council meeting that starts at 5. So if you've got a chance to check your schedule, and please let me know if that poses any problems for any of you for February 23rd to start an hour early, just to make sure finance has a chance to answer all your questions and enter into an adequate discussion with you about the, I think it's general operations and utilities rate schedule or rate setting is on for February 23rd. So just bear that in mind. Does anyone have any questions about the schedule?
Counselors? No question. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Should make our notes. Thank you very much. Council reports. I would start by our youth counselor, Evie Clark. Sorry.
We need a resolution for that last.
I'll move it.
Thank you.
Second,
Thank you very much for the reminder. So we have two recommendations that Director of Corporate Service report title 2021 meeting schedule update be received, and that the council and committee of the whole meeting schedules be adopted as presented. Thank you, Councilor Crowe. Councilor Lumley, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Sorry about that. So now council reports. Hi, Evie Clark, how are you? Oh, you have no sound.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me speak. So Gravity just wanted me to tell you guys that they had the first youth council meeting, and then it went really well, and they seemed to have a good solid group of students that seemed really excited to be a part of it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other update?
That's all. No, I think I talked with Gravity. We don't have ideas quite confirmed yet. We've been brainstorming some things, but just not quite yet.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Crowe?
thank you. A couple of things. I attended the LGLA conference, and again, it was Zoom, so it was sort of, it's challenging, but there was some really good things. It started out actually on Monday, but it went Monday to Friday, but the stuff on Monday was pre-recorded stuff, but there was a really good presentation done by BC Assessment Authority. And yes, I've come to realize that my taxes again this year are going to be going up. There's how the assessments work. And then there was a presentation on Property Tax 101, which was good. Tuesday was just basically some of the sponsors doing their dog and pony show. This year it was sponsored by Tourism BC, Fortis, the city of Saanich, TELUS. And then Wednesday we got into the meat of it. The first presentation was leading in on unprecedented times, just the challenges that different groups have been faced with dealing with COVID. Then Nora Young, who's the host of Spark on CBC, did a really good presentation on how we get information and how we interpret information and how information can be manipulated. So I won't bore you with a lot of it right now, but it was a really, really good presentation that she did. And it's just, how, going back to, she referenced 1887, where the first phone line was put in and someone phoned someone, and the reaction on the protocol on how to answer a phone and how that's changed with, our little black boxes and cell phones and the new technology. And also how information can be sort of manipulated, because there are still people who aren't on social media or don't have computer access. They tend to get excluded from survey information. A lot of people have cell phones, so they don't get included in survey information because unless they log on to the website. So there were a lot of interesting things there. Young and Anderson did a presentation on the new normal and sort of the impacts that's had on just relationships in governance and some of the challenges with the relationship between councils and staff, communications, things like that. Public stability was another topic of conversation. Committees moving to recovery was another seminar that was really a lot of good information in it. Business on the rebound and what, building back a better tomorrow is sort of was the emphasis of that, because not necessarily do we want to go back to the old normal. So what I'll do is I will make my notes available to council, and certainly willing to update if anyone has any questions. Just a heads up, we had a very successful community Christmas dinner that was sponsored by the Salvation Army, the local churches, the Legion, and that was held December 20th at the Legion. The Legion again have offered their services so we can host an Easter supper. And again, it'll be takeout only. And there'll be more information coming on that. That's about it for me for now.
Thank you, Councillor Crowe. Any other council report? Thank you, Councillor Ledwig.
On February 4th, I attended the first Community Action Committee meeting for the School Road Supportive Housing Project. It was a positive meeting. It was the first one, and it was really just an introductory session where members of the committee got to meet each other and more or less just ask questions of Rain City and BC Housing. So there's lots of questions about the services being provided and the building and tenant selection and all that kind of stuff. So I'll just give a quick rundown. As far as services go, there will be a bagged breakfast. There'll be meal services for residents living in the building, including a bagged breakfast every morning and one hot meal every day. There's a medication program planned in partnership with the local pharmacies. There'll be an Indigenous cultural liaison to work with local nations and those people living in the building that identify as Indigenous. As far as the building goes, I mean, everybody knows it's a 40-unit facility that has an industrial kitchen, community space, a medical room and a safe use room, a TV room, and laundry facilities. One of the questions that was asked was about a COVID response plan. And so I will say that, hold on, let me just look at my notes here, that Rain City is being trained to implement procedures and protocols around infectious control consistent with the public health orders. And part of that does include closing those communal spaces during this time until we're over this pandemic, as well as the typical measures that everybody's having to implement, which would be self-isolation if someone were to be infected, and disinfection and that kind of thing. Those are questions that were asked, so I'm just raising that. People also asked about the tenants and how tenants have been selected for the facility. Tenants have already been selected. They're hoping to be starting the facility. They're hoping to house the facility. Let's just say at least by the end of the month, over the next couple of weeks, but safely by the end of the month, I could say. And that tenants have already been selected for the facility through a partnership between BC Housing and Rain City. The criteria to select the individuals is based on, the risk of homelessness and the individual's connection to Gibsons. Priority is being given to Indigenous women from the Squamish and Sechelt nations. Members of the committee include the principal of the Gibsons Elementary School, a school board trustee from SD 46, a pastor from the church across the street, a member of the Gibson Senior Society, 2 nearby residents or neighbors living by, BC Housing, of course, Rain City, who will be managing the facility, and myself from the town of Gibsons. And lastly, just so everyone knows, it will be a staff facility 24 hours a day, 24/7. There will be 2 people on staff at all time. So that's the report for now. We will be meeting again in a month. And I'll report out then when we meet again.
Thank you. That's great. Yes, everybody's looking forward to to see this building complete. Thank you. Councilor Crowe?
Sorry, just one sort of follow-up thing. For people who didn't attend our committee of the whole meeting today, I think it'd be really important just to give a shout out to staff for, first of all, the amazing reports that they brought to us. And for anyone in the community, I would really seriously recommend that you look at the agenda and the reports, because, quite often, we're criticized of having, staff falling all over one another. But when you look at the workload that they've been dealing with and dealing with them under difficult situations, we're out of the council chamber, so we don't have the GATT flowchart on the wall to look at. But when you look at the quarterly reports for the last quarter of last year, there was an amazing amount of work that was accomplished. And particularly in areas like bylaw, where they were just slammed with the number of calls. So I would just like to put a shout out to staff for the reports they gave us for the year end, and for the workload that they've dealt with in very difficult times. And I think they should be applauded. And I would highly recommend that, perhaps maybe even Elizabeth draw attention to the fourth quarter reports, because there was a lot of really valuable information there. So I just wanted to mention that again.
Thank you, Councilor Crowe. Great remarks. Congratulations, staff. And I like the suggestion of asking Elizabeth. Thank you very much. I have a report I attended on February 8. It was a meeting about ageism and social isolation. It was coordinated by the Sunshine Coast Community Response Network, which is a group of community members to prevent elder abuse, and was also SPT, as a Seniors Planning Table, and April Struthers. It was It was an incredible meeting, because in a way that we understand, we know that there's elders abuse, but listening to the statistics is quite, and especially Canadian statistics. So just feel like 60% of Canadians over the age of 66 report they are treated differently. So that's, Canada is an old population, so there's a lot of people that would reach this mark. And then another statistics is 80% of Canadians older than 75 or older feel less important. So ageism is the most tolerated ism in Canadian society. So that, to me, to hear about that was kind of a new information. You might think that there are other isms, but ageism it's something that people tolerate the most. Elder abuse, it's widespread reality, and this is across the world, that there's research done in different types of cultures, different kind of societies, and everywhere older people are subject of abuse, violence, and neglect. And I was listening to actually a Spanish professor, and it was interesting because he was talking that this is one of the results of the cult of being young. So if you're young, you're great, and after you pass the young youth, so you start feeling the pain. But the interesting thing is, it's not necessarily getting too old. If you are just, for example, even among sport players, for example, anyone that past certain age, like 30s, or it's already considered old. So this is ingrained in deep inside our psychic, and it's interesting to start exploring that. And ageism has really become more visible because of COVID. And good news, the last meeting, actually, I had asked if there was any statistics for elder abuse on the coast, and they never collected, but they would start collecting. So this is great because I think in some, in 1 year or more, we'll start getting data and understanding what is, what's happening here and what are the types of abuse that are happening in our society. So it was a very good, and I'm sure if anyone is interested, they can see online. Everything's videotaped. Thank you. So this is my report for now. I think we will be moving to correspondence. Council correspondence. We have correspondence. Can we please receive correspondence, the correspondence from February 1st and February 8th? Thank you, Councilor Crowe. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ladwig. It goes against. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. So does anyone have any highlight? Wants to bring forward? Okay, I would bring one. There's a letter that was actually Mayor Beamish put on the council reading file of ending February 8th, and is actually, thank you, Donna Thomas. She sent this to Mayor Beamish, and is about, it's a letter from the Council of Canadians talking about the commitment that the federal government made on establishing the Canada Water Agency. But the interesting about this article was because they discussed the mandate. And that's the powerful thing, because the Council of Canadians have done in-depth analysis. And so they are pretty clear of the role that this agency should have. So one of the ideas I asked our CAO if it would make sense that council write a letter, that the town writes a letter, and even perhaps share with other members of other municipalities in the Sunshine Coast, because it is a very important issue. They highlight, for example, they actually highlight some of the mandates, which is implementing the human rights to water and sanitation. We know that Indigenous people, there are many, many, many Indigenous communities that they don't have water and sanitation, and they're struggling many times for decades, not only a few years. Strengthening freshwater protection regulations, protect water from major energy projects. These are the big highlights, and they also talk about the dangerous levels of lead in our water, which we were fortunate to hear today that Gibson's doesn't experience that, perhaps maybe some households. But so perhaps I would like to make a motion, if council would support that we write a letter to the Canadian federal government with our take on what we believe. Do I have a supporter? Would you like to speak, Councillor Ladwig? Or?
Sorry, can you just clarify what the question would be or what the motion would be?
The motion is for council, right, to ask staff to prepare a letter to the federal government, but specifying the mandates. And the letter that is on the correspondence is very, it's 2 pages of incredible information. They've done the exercise. They know that they have done a gap analysis. So we don't need to come up. We can personalize from the letter, but it will be I think it will be a very important. Individuals are welcome to provide input too, but I think it's important, right, that municipalities too, because they are the ones suffering. And one of the things they talk about is budget, right, from federal agencies to secure water infrastructure. So there are many things involved here.
So sorry, what you're asking then is for us to endorse staff writing a letter saying that we support this new
Writing a letter, right? And then they can bring the letter to
a
council.
letter of support.
Yes,
for the-
Yes.
Right.
Actually, I asked Manny what he thought, and he thought that was a good idea. I asked the mayor. So it seems that there's a consensus, at least among the three of us.
Yeah.
Councilor Crowe?
I was just going to say, basically, it's a letter of support as to why we need a Canadian Water Agency and that we support the mandate that they've outlined.
That the Council of Canadian has outlined. Thank you very much. So do we, okay, we have a mover, a seconder, Councilor Crowe, and any more discussion? All in favor? Thank you, motion passed. Thank you very much. Corporate officer, did you get the motion?
Yes, I think I have the motion. Council's directing staff that they write a letter that council supports the Canadian Water,
Yeah, the Canada Water Agency.
the Canada Water Agency, and supports their mandate. I think that's the gist of it. I was quickly flipping to your email from earlier to grab what you had said earlier in your email.
I can assist with that, Acting Mayor, just as we discussed earlier, so I can work with Rebecca on the letter, and then we'll circulate a draft to council.
Yes, that's
make sure it captures your intention there.
Yes, yeah, basically it's to write to the federal government to support the Canada Water Agency that the Liberals promised, but in this case, the Council of Canadian did a gap analysis and in-depth study of the needs and what the mandate of the agency should be. So pretty much. Thank you very much. Any other, let me see. Yes, no,
Acting Mayor D'Andrade, a couple of things, if I may. I see that Councilor Crowe has had his hand up, so maybe he can have a turn, and I can just point out another article there.
Thank you. Councilor Crowe, please.
Thank you. I was just going to mention, it was a letter from the from Flinrod announcing that the province has launched Fire Smart Economic Recovery Fund. So, you know, we've had presentations on Fire Smart. We know it's important. It isn't one of the cheapest. You know, there's stuff that individuals can do, but at a community level, if staff have the capacity to apply for what funding might be available to help us at a community level, that would be great. I think the CAO has something to say on this.
If I may, yes, we that's the other item that we wanted to bring it up to your attention. We got a call from the SCRD inquiry earlier last week, and they suggested that we work together and apply as a region. And I understand that Sea Shelf Nation has also expressed interest in working with us. So it would follow, as you recall, we did a small little study around Gibson's, primarily just talking to the agencies. And then Councilor D'Andrade has been part of a regional community wildfire response plan. And this is basically the money to do the things that the plan would outline. And so it would be very helpful. And so our hope would be that when Matt Drake prepares a draft, then we'll likely come back to council for a letter of support. And I think that's what's being asked of us at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually perfect timing because the CRD is just working on the Community Wildlife Protection Plan, but there's no funds for implementation of the few prescriptions. So this would address at least part of the plan, hopefully all of the plan, all of the implementation. Thank you. Any other letter? Any other correspondence on the? So seeing none, we will move to item number 10.2. It's a letter from David Abbey, Attorney General and Minister responsible for housing, homeless count 2020, Gibson C. Shelt. And the recommendation is that the letter dated January 26, 21 from David Abbey, Attorney General and Minister responsible for housing regarding the Gibson C. Shelt homeless count for 2020 be received. Councilor Crowe, Councilor Ledwig, discussion? Sorry, just finding. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so all in favor of receiving the letter? Thank you. Yeah, I think we've seen this document before, and it's pretty straightforward. So we are going on the bylaws now. Item 11.1, development application procedures amendment by law, public notifications. The recommendation is that development application procedures amendment by law number 116604 2021 be given first, second, and third reading. Do I have a mover? Councilor Ledwig, Councilor Crowe, seconded. Discussion? Yeah, seeing none. All in favor? Thank you. It passed. Unfinished business. We have a 12.1 AVIC resolution. It's a long resolution. Corporate officer, do I have to read?
I can read it for you if you like. We have two different resolutions.
Okay, I would read recommendations. That the following resolution be forwarded to the Association of Vancouver Islands and Coastal Communities and subsequently the Union of BC Municipalities. Whereas local governments are working to prepare their communities for the impacts of climate change, including increased severity of rain events, floods, and droughts by working to develop co-governance and management plans and invest in the assessment, monitoring, and where appropriate, restoration of natural assets such as forests and creeks that provide vital ecosystem services. And whereas the provincial government issues forestry and mining operating licenses and permits for the industrial activity taking place on Crown lands, and where these projects could have a potentially negative impact on the downstream community. And therefore, be it resolved that the province of BC, in their consideration of these projects, include a referral to affected local governments and undertake risk assessments to identify and assess any potential threats to the natural assets that communities rely on to provide essential services such as drinking water and flood mitigation. Yeah, that's a great motion. A great resolution. So I think we are here in support of this resolution. Councillor Lumley, do I have a second? Councillor Crowe?
I would like to just add, I think that at the end of this resolution, I don't see why you wouldn't add a fire, like it says drinking water and flood mitigation, but I don't see why you wouldn't add potential fire and or I don't know if you'd say landslide, or I mean, we do have a gravel pit operating on the side of a mountain behind us. I mean, we could probably add a couple other things on there too, just to give it a little bit more impact. That's just my thinking, but.
Oh, I think it's great thinking. Are you proposing a specific wording right now?
Well, I think fire, I mean, like, I know this is coming from our community, but I know that, you know, there's additions of homes, trailer parks, so on and so forth above our water supply or on our water supply. Plus, I mean, fire mitigation. I mean, if you know, if it's going to affect the town of Gibson's, I think it should just be included. That's the only two things I could think of was fire and potential, like, so I don't know how to say it, but maybe like,
And landslides.
yeah, there's a technical term probably.
Activities that result in a landslide.
Yeah.
Corporate officer. I think we need your help.
So I would suggest that be in the first paragraph, whereas local governments are working to prepare their communities for the impacts of climate change, including increased severity of rain events, floods, droughts, fire, and landslides.
Mm-hmm.
It would fit right in there. You would need to, you have a motion on the table, though. You would need to make a motion to amend the motion.
Okay. So, okay, so I'll start making a motion to amend the motion. Do we have a, okay, Councillor Ledwig, a seconder, Councillor Lumley. Any more discussion on this amendment? Okay, we accept what the corporate officer just said to us. I think it's great. All in favor? Thank you. And corporate officer, since we amended this one, we don't have to do anything with the other one, right?
You do now need to
I'll pass the amendment.
you still need to, you've approved the amendment. Now you need to approve the motion.
The motion, okay. So do we have, okay, Councillor Lumley, Councillor Crowe, seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor? It passed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Lumley, for your insertion. So we have another AVIC resolution. So
Excuse me, sorry, Deputy Mayor. Well, I guess you could read that, but I also have an amendment for this one too. But if you want to go ahead and read it out, that's fine. But
okay. So why don't I read so the public knows what we are doing in case someone doesn't have
okay.
Okay, so the recommendations are that the following resolution be forwarded to the Association of Vancouver Islands and Coastal Communities and subsequently the Union of BC Municipalities. Whereas the BC government has ownership of and jurisdiction over arterial provincial highways that are located in municipalities, and whereas municipalities have authority under the community charter to manage and regulate highways such as streets, roads, lanes, bridges, viaducts, sidewalks, and other ways open to public use, and whereas municipalities require the approval of the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure before regulating or prohibiting traffic on arterial provincial highways, and whereas municipalities experience economic, ecological, and logistical impacts whenever the Ministry of Transportation undertakes works on any arterial provincial highway that intersects with any municipal ways open to the public. Therefore, be it resolved that when working on arterial provincial highways, the provincial government require the Minister of Transportation conduct meaningful consultation with local governments and residents of all municipalities located within the highway corridor. That's a great motion as well, long. So Councillor Lumley, where would you like the change?
Well, maybe it doesn't have to be. I don't like, maybe you guys can decide, but I mean, meaningful consultation. The only thing that I remember is the Ministry of Transportation came to and presented at council after they had done all the work at the corner of School Road and North Road. So they met with us. I guess that would qualify as meaningful consultation, but they had already done the work. So I think in the resolution, it would be like prior to doing any work or any major work or however you want to word it. The resolution should be that they have to have meaningful consultation with the community prior to doing anything. Mm-hmm. So that's the only addition I would have to that resolution.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think technically the word meaningful, I think means that, but I think it doesn't hurt the clarification. So I think it's good. Councillor Crowe?
I was just going to say, I totally agree with Councillor Lumley, and we would just need to add consultation with local governments and residents of all municipalities located within the highway corridor prior to the commencement of any work.
Mhm. Perhaps planning or, okay, commencement. I'm just wondering if it's gonna come back and announce that they're already commencing the work and will be another not meaningful consultation. Why don't we specify planning during the planning stage and commencing, if that's the case, if you want more precision, right? Because my understanding is meaningful consultation encompasses all of that, but I don't think it's translated in practice. We should, corporate officer?
I would suggest that at the final paragraph, council can let me know if this would capture your intent. Therefore, be it resolved that prior to planning and working on arterial provincial highways, provincial government require the Ministry of Transportation. We could add the prior at that point.
Perhaps should we say throughout the planning stages and prior
to
commencing the work? So at least it's very specified. If they approve, they have to throughout the planning stage and prior.
Shall I read it back to you now?
Please.
So everything remains the same except the final paragraph would read, therefore be it resolved that throughout the planning stages and prior to working on arterial provincial highways, the provincial government require the Ministry of Transportation conduct meaningful consultation with local governments and residents of all municipalities located within the highway corridor.
I like it. Okay, so we will approve the amendment. Councillor Ledwig, seconded by Councillor Crow. Any more discussion? All in favor? Thank you. And now anyone would like to move the approval for the recommendation? Councillor Crow? Councillor Ledwig? Any more discussion? All in favor? Thank you, perfect. So 13, new business. Any new business? Councillor Lumley?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to revisit council correspondence at the next committee of the whole meeting. I'd like to change this. Well, I'd like to discuss it with council and the mayor, if he's there. If not, the acting mayor. But I'd like to just maybe rejig this whole section of our council agenda. There's a lot of holes in the council reading. For one thing, nobody that's watching this meeting or nobody that has an agenda gets to see the letters. So it's very confusing that way for somebody trying to. And if we're trying to be transparent, why wouldn't we choose the letters prior to the meeting and have them published or attached to the agenda? The other thing is, what I don't like is letters coming to council for review that have already been dealt with by staff. I think that's sends a bad message to our staff, kind of undermines their credibility, and it's a waste of our time and their time inside a meeting, rehashing something that staff have already dealt with. So those are just a couple of things. There's more, but I'd like to make a motion, or I'd like to actually, I'd just like to make a motion that staff bring back the correspondence file section of our agenda for discussion at the next committee in the whole. And if the corporate officer, if anybody else has a comment, or that would be my motion. However, Rebecca would like to, or the corporate officer would like to reword it, is fine, but as long as it entails that meaning, that'd be great.
Thank you. I think my understanding is that all this council correspondence should be available to the public, but I believe it's a matter of capacity. So it doesn't have enough time to how to say, to cover the names and stuff, because if you look on our website, there used to be, I think the last time was 2019. So, but yeah, I would, I think I would consider that, and for staff to bring the report is a good idea, so we can discuss. Councillor Ledwig.
I was just going to say, I totally support that motion. There's little things about the way we go about reviewing those that have frustrated me over the last 2 years as well. Just little things like the fact that I have to, during our meeting, I have to dig into my email just to pull it up, to read the individual files. I find it very awkward. And so I find that I feel like I'm stumbling even to keep up during our meeting sessions. So the way it's presented, I find a bit of a challenge. So anyways, I think it's a great motion. And I think more discussion should be had. So I agree with it.
Okay. So do we have CAO, please?
Just for clarification, so we understand, is it to bring back at our next committee of the whole, is to bring our current policy, so we can review how do we currently process it and what the policy is, and then we can have a discussion about that. Is that correct?
Yeah, and how it could better fit into our meetings, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
And if I may say, corporate officer and CAO, and to bring the rationale first of all, and if there's any legislation attached of obligations that council has to do with the public, right? I mean, one thing is what council would like to do, another thing is our obligation. So it should be a good discussion as well. And if I may ask that we have a good time to discuss. So if the agenda is too full, that we choose another meeting, because I think this deserves a good discussion and a good report.
It may require an amendment to the council proceedings bylaw. I'll need to take another look. Being fairly new to your procedures, I'd like to take a look and see if that would require an amendment as well. And indeed, it may be that the February 23rd meeting is quite full. If so, we are having them pretty much every week now, so we might be able to fit it on either February 23rd or it could be March 2nd, if that's okay with council.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
February 23rd that's a special budget meeting anyway, right? So the first committee of the whole in March would be fine with me, I think. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so where were we? We had a.
Illyria seconded.
Okay, and then more discussion, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Any notice of motion? Well, you already made the motion, I guess. Inquiries, any inquiries? The inquiries right now can be about any subject. Please, corporate officer, if you can check if we.
Yeah, I'll just check. I got someone here with their hand up. You should see Suzanne Sanger's name there.
Hello again, council. I have two questions, and I hope it's okay. And I just want to say, well done. This meeting has gone so smoothly, and it's nice to see you guys all just zipping through it like that. So I'm curious about the supportive housing issue. And so it was nice to hear Councillor Ladwig's report from the Supportive Housing Advisory Committee, but I'm not clear. Two things. Does there get to be a resident of the building on the advisory committee board? That's just a question. I would love to see that. I think it would be, inclusive. Anyway, it's just a question I like to know. And also, where does a person find the minutes of those meetings? Because I looked on the town's website and I didn't find it there.
Please, Councillor Ledwig.
So my understanding is no, one of the residents doesn't end up being on the committee, probably due to privacy reasons and things like that. Like, I'm not sure that one of the residents would want to be on the committee. There was a terms of reference that went around that identified the organizations and the members that BC Housing was looking for to be part of that committee. So yeah, so no, residents, I don't believe is, if they wanted to be, I mean, I can certainly bring that up and say, if there's a resident that wants to be part of it, I would welcome it. So I can let them know that we've heard that from the community, and that's a great suggestion. As far as minutes, I see, again, I need to pull it up in my email. They've sent it out. It is posted. I think it's on BC Housing's website. Yes, I think it's BC Housing's website. If you go there, sorry, I find it hard to go back and forth from different screens. But if you go there, they list all the different supportive housing projects that they're working on, and Gibson's is there. And sure enough, the minutes are there.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cool. And then I appreciate that a lot. Thanks. It's good that people know where to go to follow along what's happening there. And then I was wondering if we could get an update on the status of Gospel Rock.
CAO, would you please?
Gospel Rock, our website has got the most updated information. I know Leslie Ann can jump into when she can, but we've had meetings with the developer as well, and the development team, and I understand also that the covenant agreement has been sent to the town recently, the last few days. So Leslie Ann is reviewing that, and that should be the last step so we can register that. Stop work order is still on, as you know, and I think in the last correspondence about the covenant, there was some reference to the timing of the surveys, which is expected in short order. But I think my sense is that all parties that have been involved were sort of up to date on that, where we're at. So we're working through it. Been taking a bit longer, but I think it's been cooperative from our end of things.
Good. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I just think it's important that the public, we're in a public meeting, so it's good to have keeps the public along for the ride. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. And if CAO, I think it's my understanding that we're still waiting for more reports from staff. Am I correct?
Yeah, yes, you are. There's some memo to council on some of the steps, not some of the steps, but the steps that we've taken, particularly those that were subject of questions around what was staff's role and timing and so on. Yeah, I think that's the most pertinent one, is that. And then I think that would be self-evident from that report or that memo to council. So a few more pieces. Just taking my notes in here. Yeah.
Are we just to clarify, are we talking about I know that the town has received an environmental report from the owner's consultant that will be forwarded to the conservation partners. That hasn't happened yet, but we're anticipating it. Is that what you're talking about? Are there further reports?
No, I think that report you're talking about, I think that goes with the surveys that still, I haven't seen that myself.
Okay.
So I'm talking about is there were some questions around the delegated authority and the decision that was made around the October decision of issuance of a DP. I think council has asked us for some clarification on that, so we'll work through that.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
And my understanding, CAO, is there may be another even survey, right, to better understand what happens in Gospel Rock. That's my understanding, at least from what the information that was exchanged.
There's more than one survey, and some relate to the covenant registration, some relate to the stop work order, and there's ongoing work. So that certainly,
okay,
there's more than one.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Corporate officer, any other inquiry?
I just wanted to be sure that the attendees do know that if they put up their hand, I didn't really explain that we are in the inquiries. If you put up your hand, I will be able to include you now. I do have another one here. I'm just going to let them in, I believe. I have another one. Yes, we've got one more here. You have a Sophie Woodrow.
Hi there. Since Councillor Lumley brought up the letter question, I thought it'd be a good idea to betray my own ignorance about the procedure around letters. Being new to this beat, one thing that I have noticed is that they're not always, that there is a list, which is great, but in terms of accessing those letters, I'm not sure if there is kind of like what briefly how you do that. In the past, in November, I made a request through communications for a letter that showed up on the agenda, and after multiple requests, never received it and wasn't able to incorporate it into my reporting. And there was never a reason given. So I guess in a self-interested way, I'm glad this is making it onto an agenda, but it would also welcome any, like, very briefly, just make sure that that is the procedure, basically. If there is a letter on the agenda requesting it through communications would be an appropriate means of accessing it.
If I thanks Sophie for this question. My recollection, because I have seen that was over a year ago. I went to the on our website. At least I could find all the letters up to 2019. And when I asked why we don't have the letters there anymore, it was an issue of capacity. That's what I understand. So that's a good question to explore. I think my understanding is the public has the right to see, but you have to, for privacy issues, you have to cover the name, and that encompasses work. So when council receives the letter, we don't have that because, you know, we are not disclosing this publicly, the name of the person, unless the person comes and say, but we don't usually do. So that's what I know at this point. But I believe that this will be a good information to discuss. And I appreciate your question.
And I just wanted to confirm that this meeting will appear on YouTube tomorrow as well.
Yes, the meeting will be on YouTube tomorrow. We've already got the meeting from the committee of the whole ready to go. And we think we've resolved the issue with the YouTube. That was what was causing our technical difficulties earlier today. So we're recording the meeting using a different method, but we think we've resolved the problem. We're going to give it a test run tomorrow so that we can return to doing them live on YouTube.
Thanks, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Corporate Officer. So I'm assuming there are no longer inquiries.
Just checking, I don't see any. I don't think there's any further questions.
Time's up anyway. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Inquiries.
Oh, really? Okay. Next meeting, it's the next regular meeting of council to be held on Tuesday, March 2nd, 2020 at 7 p.m. And adjournment. Do I have anyone? Oh, Councilor Crowe, Councilor Lumley, all in favor? Thank you. CAO, you show up. Would you like to say the final words?
Have a good night, Council, and it's been a long day, and we have more tomorrow. Thanks very much for the day.
Thank you very much. Thank everybody that attended the meeting.
Night, everyone.
Great evening. Bye-bye.